Watchers in the Fourth Dimension.
Guards, break up the tin dog. Smash it to pieces.
He was going to let me die.
Of course he was.
Is that really Tempest?
Hello and welcome back to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension. I'm Anthony.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Riley. And there's another 6 inches to add to your collection, old man.
This episode, we're talking about the creature from the pit, in which we encounter a creature in a pit. Anyway, before we discuss that, Julie's going to take a look at the mail. Over to you, Julie.
Thanks, Anthony. Going to be covering basically our feedback for our season retro. So first I have from Nick Rutherford, short and sweet, says, another enjoyable episode. The season retrospectives are my favorites. I love that. Our friend James Oliver says, looking forward to how the next season is rated, as some of the stories are considered the worst ever. I recently watched those stories for the first time, and they were better than I expected. There's also a chain of comments on Facebook. If you want to check those out, feel free. Next, we have from Astrazon Danglebert Zebulon, still one of the best names, Agent of Chaos. Thanks for noticing.
You know, I do think that maybe Astrazon Danglebert Zebulon might not be his real name. Just a hunch.
Really?
Yeah. Just a feeling I get. Might be a pseudonym.
Also, long live Binro.
Yay!
Julie, as always, is awesome for her recognition of the brilliance of the Stones of Blood. Thank you. I guess I'll take the awesomeness over the Binro.
What about my recognition of the brilliance of the Stones of Blood?
Did you give it a 10?
I gave it a 9.5.
Hope you enjoyed the season, kids, because it's a bumpy ride from here. Buckle up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight.
All right. Our friend Adam Wright says, I love watching Classic Who with this podcast as it makes me really examine these seasons. I have such a deeper love for Mary Tam after this. Plus, I'm really going to look at Stones of Blood as a top-rated story when we examine the Baker era. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be so good. Austin D. Patterson says, loved this, and so glad you guys like season 16 so much. I have to disagree with you, though. I think the Doctor being called Theta Sigma on Gallifrey has to be the unnecessary fan wank of the season.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to agree. It's a good one. David Gorton says, the Armageddon factor will always be the standout of this run for me. Okay. An excellent finale for me. Weakest has to be the power of Kroll. Definitely Bob on a bad day. We'll agree on the weakest. Best guest actor. Hard to look past Peter Jeffrey for taking a badly written villain and playing it with charm and panache, or Philip Maddock for taking a less than substantial role and making the character eminently watchable. And then best use of music for me is simply the entire score of Part 5 of the Armageddon Factor perfectly enhances the action and very much adds to the atmosphere. I just can't get past the Armageddon Factor being his favorite.
It has to be someone's favorite.
I mean, let's consider that in light of where we are today and what we're about to talk about.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. All right, just one or two more. Friend Keith Burton says, very enjoyable episode. My favorite story of the season will always be Androids of Terra for nostalgic reasons. The BBC repeated the serial during the summer of 1979, and these were the very first episodes of Doctor Who I ever watched as a 10-year-old child. Kicked off my fandom, helped by the publication of the very first issue of Doctor Who Weekly, now DWM, a few weeks later. Okay, I do like that. That's a cute little story. And then he says, as regards to Tom Baker and his behavior at the time, it's worth mentioning he has since publicly apologized for how he treated his co-stars and eventually built strong and lasting friendships with them. He's also openly admitted he feels guilty for how he treated Graham Williams, who he now recognizes was a gentle soul, just trying to do the best job he could under difficult circumstances.
I empathize with that description.
Well, guess what, Anthony? This next one's for you. Our friend Guy Lambert says, really enjoyed this. Good fun. Is it me? Or has Anthony got hornier for certain elements of Who during the last few years? I know they wanted to appeal to the dads, but sub-boys too? As one might say to K9, down boy.
I plead the fifth.
And Anthony, back to you.
Thank you, Julie. And as a reminder, we really do love getting your feedback, thoughts, comments, and questions. And as you've just heard, we do try and read out as many as possible on the show. So please do get in touch. As always, you can contact us through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Watchers4D, or you can email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. Additionally, we would absolutely love it if you subscribe to the podcast, if you're not doing so already, and if you dropped us a review or rating on your podcast platform of choice. Heading behind the scenes on The Creature from the Pit. As producer Graham Williams was planning out season 17, he realized that the Doctor had saved all of time twice in 2 seasons and decided that it was time to focus on smaller scale stories again. This was behind the decision to fit the TARDIS with a randomizer to evade the Black Guardian, and its intent was to re-establish the Doctor as a character that would stumble into adventures rather than by design. Script editor Douglas Adams also saw the Loki narratives as an opportunity to align the Doctor's character more closely to Tom Baker's own personality, for better or for worse. To write the first serial in this new vision, Williams and Adams turned to David Fisher, who'd previously written both The Stones of Blood and The Androids of Tara in the previous season. Fisher's brief was to set the story on an alien planet with an unusual monster. This led to the development of a creature that wasn't malevolent, but committed monstrous acts by accident or misunderstanding. Fisher titled his scripts The Creature from the Pit, and he also decided that the main villain should be a woman. This is the guy who gave us all the ladies with the Stones of Blood, of course. Fisher turned to Greek mythology for many of the names in the story. Adrasta is derived from Andromeda, whose homeland was plagued by an enormous sea monster. He named the creature Erato after a member of the Muses, and this was intentionally ironic, as the mythological Erato was the muse of erotic poetry, with the name meaning lovely. The creature's homeworld of Typhonus was originally Tithonus, a prince of Troy who was granted immortality but without eternal youth. Chloris, meanwhile, is a minor flower goddess in Greek mythology, and is etymologically linked to the word chlorophyll. Now, because we always love hearing about the original version of the story. In the original version of this, most of the plot revolved around Adrasta's attempts to steal the TARDIS for herself. K9 eventually took her away in the TARDIS, returning her at the story's conclusion, defeated. So K9 was meant to save the day here. Upon initially being thrown into the pit, the Doctor was to be attacked by Helen, a former member of Adrasta's team of engineers, and in the final episode, a battle fleet from Tythonus arrived, threatening to destroy Chloris with a photon missile. Erato and the Doctor traveled into space in Erato's ship, and Erato wove a spacesuit for the Doctor so that he could reach the missile and disarm it. So there are some similarities there, but we know some changes happened. Fisher's scripts were commissioned in mid-November 1978. It briefly became The Creature in the Pit before reverting back to The Creature from the Pit, so some very small title fuckery there. Williams asked Fisher to incorporate some genuine scientific concepts which would appeal to older children. So, Fisher sought the assistance of the Institute of Astronomy at Cambridge University. As it turned out, several members of the faculty were quite eager to help because they were big fans of Doctor Who. And they offered the idea of a neutron star as an option for the Tythonian weapon, suggesting that one way to avert its threat would be to encase it in metallic foil. Scientists, y'all. One of Adams's suggestions for The Creature from the Pit was that the scarcity of metal on Chloris would have driven some former miners to banditry. Fisher initially feared that this element would become too silly, but he quickly began to emulate Douglas Adams's style of humor, as seen in his own Doctor Who serial, The Pirate Planet, as well as in his radio series, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Fisher also drew upon the character of Fagin from Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist to inspire the bandit leader Torvin. The downside of this was Adams wound up having to rein in the jokiness of Fisher's scripts, and yet they were still criticised by BBC head of serials Graham MacDonald, who, if you think back over the last few seasons, had regularly argued against overt humour in Doctor Who. Too violent, too silly, they just can't win. During scripting, it became known that the season would open with Terry Nation's Destiny of the Daleks, with The Creature from the Pit planned to follow it as the second serial of the season. However, since the scripts for the Dalek serial would be delayed, it was decided that Fisher's studio-bound adventures should be made first. With that in mind, Creature from the Pit was Lalla Ward's debut performance as the new Romana. The original concept for Romana, when she was introduced way back at the beginning of last season, had been to pair the Doctor with a more assertive, independent companion, but Williams felt this hadn't worked very well. He and Lalla decided to make the new Romana a more playful figure who would be a bit more appealing to children. Fisher had written The Creature from the Pit with Tam's Romana in mind, but he made an effort to revise his scripts to account for the new characterization.
We'll come back to that.
Yes, we will. During the autumn of 1978, Williams fell badly ill, and many of his duties had been successfully assumed by production unit manager John Nathan Turner. Prior to the start of Doctor Who's 17th recording block, Williams approached Graham MacDonald and asked him for permission to promote Nathan Turner to the post of associate producer, only for that request to be denied. Nonetheless, MacDonald was becoming increasingly concerned with some of the production decisions that were being made on the show, and he asked former producer Barry Letts to keep an informal eye on the program. More to come on that in a future episode. The director assigned to Creature from the Pit was Christopher Barry, whose last Doctor Who credit had come on season 13's The Brain of Morbius, and if you think back, his first Doctor Who credit was 4 out of 7 of the episodes of The Daleks, way back in season 1. Unfortunately, Barry very quickly became skeptical that the enormous errato was even feasible. He'd seen another colossal Doctor Who monster, the giant squid Kroll, be a notable failure in the previous year's The Power of Kroll. And these doubts were shared by visual effects designer Matt Irvine, who suggested using a combination of puppets and model sets to try to make errato work. But Barry didn't feel that this was the right approach. Progress on the prop was very slow, and Barry had a fairly last-minute change of heart and suddenly wanted to follow Irvine's suggestion, only to be told that they were now too close to filming to make a puppet work. Barry then went to Graham Williams and argued that errato should be totally reimagined. And again, Williams said, "We're too close to filming. No, you have to make this thing work." So we're seeing some questionable decisions from our director. Joining him behind the scenes, we have the return of both Dudley Simpson and, of course, John Nathan Turner as composer and production unit manager, respectively. Valerie Warrender returns as designer, having previously worked on season 16's The Androids of Tara, and June Hudson returns to provide costumes, and of course she had previously handled costumes for season 16's The Reboss Operation, as well as the season 17 opener, Destiny of the Daleks. One of Barry's tasks was to help Williams cast a new voice for K9, with John Leeson having decided not to return for this season. Barry reached out to one of his friends, an actor by the name of David Brierley, only to find him reluctant to take the part, but of course, he eventually relented. Also cast in The Creature from the Pit was another veteran Doctor Who director, Maurice Barry, who was actually a distant relative of Christopher Barry. He had been responsible for Season 4's The Moonbase, Season 5's The Tomb of the Cybermen, and Season 6's The Dominators, but he had returned to acting and was now hired to play the engineer Tolland. During filming, Baker and Ward were beginning to find that they had a similar philosophy about what made Doctor Who work, and shared a habit of rewriting their dialogue to better fit their visions of their characters. Even this early into their time working together, it was becoming clear that Baker and Ward's affection for each other was growing deeper than that of mere colleagues. Uh-oh. There were some issues behind the scenes with Lalla Ward. She wasn't happy about how the story handled Romana. She felt that some of the design choices weren't great. Her hairstyle was unflattering. She didn't like the fact that the white outfit that June Hudson had designed intentionally harkened back to Mary Tam's original dress from the Reboss Operation. Ward also felt that Fisher had done a really bad job of revising his scripts to reflect her version of Romana, and she expressed reservations that she was being expected to do nothing more than echo Tam's version. Williams agreed that Ward should have more say in her character's portrayal, which was given to her after this story. The Creature from the Pit was an equally frustrating experience for Christopher Barry, and contributed to his decision to end his association with Doctor Who after 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was ultimately decided that the City of Death would be broadcast in between Destiny of the Daleks and The Creature from the Pit, which made this story the third of the season. It was broadcast between October the 27th and November the 17th, 1979. And with this timing, it was the first of this season's stories to enjoy competition from ITV following the resolution of the strike action, which had kept the only competition on British television off the air for 2 whole months. Anyway, before we discuss the story, the short summary is with Julie this episode. Over to you, Julie.
After our last podcast, I was motivated to come up with a song. I can't have Riley taking over my shtick. However, this story does not deserve a parody of Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. We have a poorly realized society where one woman rules with a metal fist. How the people haven't rebelled, I have no idea. She doesn't even treat her own lackeys well, always yelling at them and throwing them in the pit when they mess up. we have a random astrologer who knows he's a con man, but yet also believes he somewhat knows what he's doing. I didn't really get what he was doing. We also have a new voice for K9, and it is terrible. And don't get me started on the creature, as it was simply reminiscent of a giant green ball sack, whose brothers retaliate by sending a neutron star to the planet. Didn't they maybe think to send a rescue party as their brother was not dead yet? The only thing that is somewhat good about this story is that Romana finally feels like Romana, and yet, after hearing the behind the scenes, maybe that was not the Romana that we wanted. I guess we still need to talk about it, so back to you, Anthony.
All right, well, with that, let's go ahead and discuss it. Part 1.
Hey guys, is metal important? I don't know. Like, I was a little confused with that through the serial. And also, do you think that a planet called a Chloris has a lot of chlorophyll? Once again, these were things that were very confusing to me while watching it.
Subtle this story was not at any point.
I was really disappointed at the beginning because first I thought, oh man, we're starting with a ritual sacrifice. I love this. Except it wasn't a ritual sacrifice. She just pushed someone in a hole. That's very disappointing on my front.
You know, you gotta love a good sacrifice scene, and to your point, Julie, this was not a good sacrifice scene. That said, that jungle does look good.
Yes.
Yeah, and credit to Barry on this one. I really enjoyed the use of light. The shots that were supposed to be outdoors, but were obviously studio. But the use of lighting, it seems to be like that precursor to that very like early 80s fantasy film kind of look. I'm thinking of like Legend, where they would have a lot of just glowing white light everywhere. I really enjoyed it. It really makes it set this serial apart from others. So when you see it, you know exactly, oh, this is the creature from the pit. I was excited about that. That is probably where my excitement ends, though.
I can't disagree with you because we immediately get to the TARDIS faster than some of these others. And immediately I'm like, K9 sounds like he's putting on a voice while reading this book. Oh no, it wasn't putting on a voice. That's it.
Yeah.
That's his voice.
I do question that decision. I get that John Leeson didn't want to come back, but couldn't they have found someone who sounded a bit more like John Leeson, or could at least do a decent John Leeson impression?
You would think.
Do you guys want to know, it's not really a spoiler unless you think of casting as a spoiler, but do you want a little spoiler on casting?
Yeah.
You only have this guy for season 17. John Leeson comes back.
Excellent.
It's only for a little while.
I can see why Lala Ward complained about that costume. Before she takes that first top layer off, it looks like a fucking tent.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on with it, and it was terrible, but it also, with that lighting, her costume, without that crazy top, once again played into that whole kind of fantasy.
It did.
And I'm kind of wish they went more in that direction, but they really kind of didn't, other of, unless you want to say Lady Arasta or whatever her name was, is a kind of a wicked witch character.
I mean, she definitely is.
She yells the entire time, so obviously.
I'm going to put this out there. Absolutely everyone in this story, with the exception of Organa, is fucking terrible.
I can't really disagree with you.
We do meet the bandits this episode, so they capture Romana.
Oh my god.
And normally the downtrodden, oppressed lower classes in Doctor Who are meant to be sympathetic. We're meant to be behind them. We are meant to be supporting the oppressed masses who are trodden under the feet of the upper classes as they rise up. These guys are fucking assholes.
I swear, the way that the humor was used with them and their appearance, I felt like I was watching a Monty Python skit.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking that they were literally an army of Hagrids. Is that right? From Harry Potter? I'm not a Potterhead, so...
Except that Hagrid is a nice guy.
Right.
And these guys are not. I think there's some of that. I will say that I'll give the huntsman a little bit of credit.
Oh yeah, he's decent.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
Oh, and his costume? Goodness gracious, the Dominators have met their match in S&M gear. My.
There are some serious vibes here. I realize I got called a sub-boy at the beginning of this, but I would not submit to Lady Adrasta. I think that she would be too into the whole pain thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or she throws you down the pit.
Very clearly a dominatrix and not in a happy, fun way.
All right. So we get to...
Julie's like, enough of that.
We get to a little bit of what's going on, right? So we get out of the TARDIS. First off, we have a metallic tinkling. So no intensifies.
Right.
Tinkling. And obviously there's this giant eggshell type looking thing. And I was like, obviously there's a creature in that. That's going to be the creature that's in the pit. Wow, that was really hard to figure out. And why does it stand to reason instead of laid to reason? And I was like, why are we having this conversation with ourselves, Doctor? We don't really need it, but fine.
It's here where it feels like this serial has a lot of moments where, and I believe Anthony hinted at this a couple episodes back, where Baker is starting to get a little off the chain, uncontrollable. I'm really getting that vibe from this serial here.
Absolutely. And it gets worse before it gets worse.
Oh, God.
It does get better before we lose him, though. So I do think season 17 is Tom Baker at his most unhinged. They rein him in for season 18. I do want to point out Corella, Lady Adrasta's second in charge. That was Eileen Way playing her, who we had previously seen way back in An Unearthly Child with
Oh, wow.
There Will Be No Fire. She was the old woman.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's a real blast from the past.
Can we talk about these hairy rolling balls?
Yes, we can.
Because what the fuck?
And they respond to whipping.
Like, we've seen aggressive plants before, you know, like the Varga plants in the Daleks' Master Plan and Mission to the Unknown. But these are, I don't even know.
I was also very sad that they didn't like whimper whenever they got hit by a whip, because like then I might actually sympathize with them, but they're just balls, and then they cover K9 with stuff and he can no longer move, and I'm like, what did we just spray onto K9? I don't want to know.
Oh no, Julie.
It is uncomfortable. It is weird. They didn't have to do that. They kind of reminded me, and this is quite a callback, I don't know if either of you know what I'm talking about. In the 80s, there was a small horror franchise, kind of B-movie-ish, called Critters.
Critters!
Yes. And how they would roll up in a ball and they would roll and they're kind of hairy. That's what they reminded me of. They reminded me of Critters. Except Critters were a lot funnier than these guys.
See, I was thinking of that John Carpenter movie. What's it called, Riley?
Dark Star?
Yes, I was thinking of Dark Star with the inflatable beach ball alien. But yes, I mean, either way. Yeah, this just off the bat isn't great. I will say there is some okay dialogue, even a few lines here and there, when the Doctor's talking about how he got to his deductions versus her scientists. And he did say, to be fair, I did have a couple of gadgets that he didn't, like a teaspoon and an open mind. I did enjoy that line a lot. But even at times, it kind of references how bad it is. What's this? We call it the pit. You have such a way with words.
Right.
This knows how stupid it is.
And again, we have Romana getting captured.
Yep.
And this time, just like we have had it happen before, Romana immediately does take control. So that's nice. But then once again, I feel like, well, we've done this, so maybe shouldn't we just not have her get captured in the first place then?
You would hope.
Yeah. What I did like, and yes, I know that Lala Ward did not like it because it was too much like the first Romana Mary Tam. I was happy just because it felt like she had more of a role and more of a character, because I thought in previous serials that we've watched, she didn't feel like she was a character at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing.
Now that you bring it up, I want to know everyone's opinions about Lala Ward as Romana. This is now 3 in, and maybe this is unfair to bring it up in this one, considering that in the production, Anthony just mentioned that this was actually her first. So obviously it'd be a little rusty in this one compared to the previous 2 that we've seen. But to me, unfortunately, I'm just not seeing it yet at all.
I'm not a fan. I'm not going to lie. I liked harkening back to the original just because I liked her so much, but that's not saying that I like Lala Ward. It says I like Mary Tam.
I do think she gets better. I get, of the 3 of us, I'm the only one that has the advantage of having seen everything that comes after. I do hope that you will both warm to her. But yeah, these first 3 stories, particularly Destiny of the Daleks and then this one, have been a bit rough. I do think she got a bit better during City of Death. And I don't think that's really Lala Ward's fault. Mm-hmm. I think she's very capable, but the characterization of Romana is a bit off so far. Like, they're trying to find the voice for this new Romana.
Well said.
Well, at the end of part 1, the Doctor jumps into the pit just as Adrasta thinks that she holds all the cards, and that's our cliffhanger. And we're into part 2.
Are the henchmen just wearing a hockey mask?
Effectively.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just exactly what that is.
One thing I have to say, I say it now, and I somewhat still agree with it after seeing it, but I do remember thinking I might actually enjoy Adrasta versus Romana. Because since Romana was more like first Romana, she has the very firm backbone, and them sparring back and forth verbally was actually pretty fun there for a little bit. But then we know how it goes because Adrasta, however you say her name, is insane and just wants everyone to be killed.
And we've seen it before. We've seen Romana go at it in a David Fisher story with Cesar of Diplos. He is hitting the same beats in having those two kind of face off against each other. It's lazy. It's lazy,
but at least it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I had a question about this whole thing. So the Doctor's trapped. Sorry, I keep going back and forth, but it kept going back and forth, let's be honest. He's in the shaft, I guess, to the pit or whatever, and something's written in Tibetan?
Yeah, so he pulls out a book on mountaineering, and the book is in Tibetan, so then he pulls out a Teach Yourself Tibetan book.
It was, 1, unnecessary, and 2, just why? Why are we doing this?
I like that gag. I'm sorry, I do.
I'm afraid it might be one Bugs Bunny too far. Just a little too Looney Tunes on that one.
I guess. I do like it.
Also, I thought it was in some ways poorly done because honestly, I was like, was there something written on the walls that I'm missing or something like that? And it's like, oh no, he needed one book to read another book. Okay. I think that's what I didn't like about it.
We do get the other half of the we call it the pit gag where what is that thing in the pit? We call it the creature.
Oh, God.
So bad. It's so bad.
If David Fisher was trying to emulate Douglas Adams, he is failing dismally. Dismally.
It wouldn't be the creature from the pit. It would be some really cool, interesting name in like the abyss or something like that. Let's be honest.
So firstly, Adrasta, we know she's really awful when she orders K9 to be broken to pieces. I mean, come on, it's K9. Who would do that? Secondly, can we talk about the creature?
The ball sack? The giant ball sack?
With the appendage swinging everywhere?
See, that's the thing. When I saw that, my first question is, when it was chasing the Doctor, was, is that the creature? Or is the Doctor being hunted by the creature's dick?
And then, I know it's the end, but I have to say it before it just doesn't land right, but did the Doctor get teabagged by a giant ball sack?
Yes.
Basically, yes.
It's so bad. Okay, Christopher Barry, why did you let this happen?
Yeah. Well, he tried not to, but he left it all too late. If he had just listened to his visual effects designer,
yeah,
we could have had something quite different.
I'm so disappointed in Christopher Barry.
Oh, we never see him again after this. So.
He'll probably get the dicky. So it's so sad.
Well, just remember the lighting. The lighting might save him. That was good.
Oh, that's fair.
Creature, okay, not good. We'll see what else is there.
I suspect we will have a couple of other strong candidates for the dicky this season.
Oh, God.
So since we're in the pit, I do want to talk about the other friend the Doctor makes, and that's
God.
Organon, who's an absolute delight.
Absolutely. I was just about to bring that up because I said, well, wait a minute. We hadn't talked about him, and the Doctor meets him before he meets the creature.
Well, yes.
And I'll say now, better than Ben Rowe.
Oh,
yeah, 100%.
Better than Ben Rowe.
Well, he's a total mad lad. He knows his prophecy stuff is all fake. He admits that he's gone around all the courts on the planet telling the leaders that they're going to get visitors from the stars. And he's like, yeah, I just say that to all of them. She was just the first one who threw me down a pit. Legend.
Well, I don't understand, though, is he then goes and, like, studies these maps and continues to try to do astrology. So I'm like, you know you're a con man and yet you still try it anyway? I'm very confused.
Oh, that is really funny. Just a strange jumping off point. But that is actually something that happens with con artists.
Yeah.
When they do it enough and they become effective enough, they actually believe in themselves after a while.
Oh, no.
It's true. It is actually a true phenomenon that happens within the con artist industry. Orson Welles talks about it because he was really into this stuff. I can't remember the term. He had a very interesting term, a lingo that they used for it, but it is actually something that happens. Now, I don't know if this happens with Organon or oregano, whatever you want to call them, but just an interesting little fact that it is possible.
Side note, Jeffrey Belden, who played him, he was one of the actors considered for both the first Doctor and the second Doctor, and he goes on to voice an alternative version of the first Doctor in 2 Big Finish audios from the Unbound range. He would go on to star in Catweasel, and he would be a regular in Wurzel Gummidge, which starred John Pertwee. But he's also in things like the 1967 Casino Royale, just a ton of really cool stuff.
And I remember the name. He was in one of our Halloween episodes, The House of Drip Blood.
Yeah, he's done a lot of Amicus because he was also in Tales from the Crypt and Asylum as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So yeah, he's done a lot.
He's a pleasure.
Yes. I'm going to stop gushing over Jeffrey Belden. Let's move on.
So we find out about how the whole metal thing works.
Oh,
which is just bullshit.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, a planet that has precisely one mine, very scarce in metal. How the fuck does life evolve there, and how does it still look humanoid? Because iron is kind of a crucial mineral for us.
I mean, to be fair, you don't just eat iron, so you eat it in things. But what I want to get at is the bandits then have the brilliant plan, which actually, to be fair, this is probably the smartest thing that they do, is that they figure out that while Adrest is gone, they can then storm the castle. So, yay, have fun storming the castle, guys. They're so frustrating because one is just insane because all he cares about is the metal. He doesn't care about his own people. He's just like in it for himself. Okay, so you become a little bit rich because you have some of it, but you're not going to become rich like Adastra. So, like, ultimately, what's your goal?
Yeah, that's a good point.
This should have been done like the Curse of Peladon. Downtrodden miners, oppressed like there's no tomorrow. They're rising up to win rights and what have you. But instead, we get these fucking jokes.
And that's basically all they are. And this is where the majority of our humor comes from. Or let me rephrase that. Our intentional humor comes from. There's a lot of unintentional humor in this serial as well.
I would say describing anything to do with the bandits as humorous, Riley, is probably being generous.
Well, I do admit it was funny as they were, I don't know what you want to call it, the mouthpiece, the eye of Arato or whatever, as they're under mind control and carrying it around. I don't know, just that image was rather funny.
That was kind of funny. Anyway, there's not a huge amount to talk about in this episode, let's be honest. As we get to the end, the Doctor and Organon encounter the creature again, and then it sits on the Doctor, and that's our cliffhanger. And we're into part 3. And surprise, surprise, the Doctor's alive.
And we learn how the Doctor communicates with this creature, rather erotically.
Well, no. He attempts to talk with it erotically, but then ultimately it draws things on the wall with its dick. And that's how he figures out what it needs. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, boy.
There have been so many jokes over the years about the Doctor giving Arato a blowjob. It's unbelievable. It's been through fandom for years.
What's really fun, guys, is that I am not familiar with fandom, and I still immediately was like, it's a giant ball sack and that's a dick. So you're welcome. It's not me talking about fandom. It's me talking through what I saw.
I went in this completely blind. I had no idea, so it was shocking to me too.
What the fuck was Christopher Barry thinking?
I don't know. I just know in that dialogue scene as they're trying to give each other their information, who they are, it was really nice for the Doctor to let Arato finish.
Indeed. Oh boy.
So let's talk about the metal, okay? We kind of touched on how stupid it is. I think one of the things that bothers me the most about it, outside of how this planet is supposed to survive without it or exist without it with human beings on it or an alien race that are similar to human beings, what do you want to say? Blah, blah, blah. It's just the fact that the serial hits on this so much. And you have to think, oh, there must be something very interesting about... No, they're just very... very limited on metal. Like, that's it? Just an absence of it is what we're going to have? There's no other twist that it does something more? It's literally, no, metal's kind of important. We just don't have enough of it. Like, man, that is so lame. That's not interesting. That is so boring and dull.
The other interesting thing, too, was that I think it was more in part 4, but there was like a comment about like going back into the Dark Ages. And I'm like, they never left the Dark Ages. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, it's so bad. Moving
on from the erotica, the doctor figures out the issue, and we have I think this would be the end of 3 now, where we have the bumbling bandits come in with the eye or mouth of Arato, while the doctor's in a standoff with Lady Arasta. I'm trying so hard with this.
Adrasta.
I'm trying so hard. Like, oh boy. And we have what I think, and if you don't mind me skipping, once the Lady Adrasta sees the face get put on Arato, Myra Francis, as Lady Adrasta, has to give what I consider probably the most over-the-top
yeah.
acting I have seen that wasn't done intentionally for humor. Because it was insane.
So, a couple things. We do learn a few things. That's when we learn it's a Tithonian, because that's what she calls it. So, obviously, there's something going on. But yes, Riley, her yelling out no multiple times at the very end, this is really just bad. It's really bad. And it's her acting. And I'm sorry, Christopher Barry, but it's your direction.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, there's no reason. He could have just cut her off like, that's good. Not say, keep going. This is gold. Keep going.
Yeah, it is a shame that he is not just stumbling towards the dicky, but I would say proudly striding towards the dicky at this point.
I just hope that what he put on screen isn't a reflection of his dicky.
Oh boy.
Green and disproportionate to his ballsack.
Oh boy.
Can we just move on to part 4?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Great. So Adrasta's dead. Yay. No, we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Well, okay. First off, I don't know if you guys noticed. I saw it on the recap, and someone had said something about in 6 seconds, like kill someone or something. And you can see the astrologer in the background, like wave his arm, like as it's a second hand, like counting 6 seconds. I'm just like, what is he doing? He is so crazy. So yeah, that was something I noticed.
He's a sensitive soul, because before Adrasta dies, she threatens Organon, and the doctor's like, all right, buddy, goodbye. It's nice knowing you. Clearly a bluff, but then he's so hurt for the rest of the episode.
That was enjoyable to have that callback later after that scene ended for him to be complaining about it. That was a nice touch.
That was nice. I have a question. The Tithonian, because I never learned the actual name of this guy, cannot speak, and he uses the larynx of other people. Okay, that's all well and good, but it sounds like it comes out as normal speech. The larynx isn't the thing that causes your speech to sound a certain way. Your mouth does things to make words sound like words. So why aren't they moving their mouths as well as using the larynx to actually like speak?
Don't ask difficult questions, Julie.
Without using their mouth, it would sound like, what, Tibetan throat singing? Which actually would have been really cool. An alien. I would have liked that.
And then if it was Tibetan, then having...
and there's a callback. There you go. There. See? We're rewriting this. We're getting the transcript. We're going to rewrite this. This is going to be Watches in the Fourth Dimension first. We are going to rewrite it, and then we're going to do a table read of it.
Yeah, we'll stage it as our own audio play. Coming soon, should we ever get round to it.
I get to play Organon.
Well, I guess that makes me the Doctor and Julie is Romana.
I'll take it. I just don't want to be a Dastra.
All right, I'll do Adrasta. You guys do the leads, I'll do all the supporting characters.
We've had some guests we could probably bring back.
Perfect. All right. We have to put K9 back out of commission because he's too good at shooting people in the dick. And so the wolf weeds come back, those stupid hairy balls. I'm just so tired of it. It makes no sense.
Honestly, I gave up caring this episode.
Yeah. But see, it's so weird. This serial feels like it ends at part 3 because part 4 just feels like an addendum.
Yeah,
it?
they kill off Adrasta pretty early, who has been set up as the main villain. And then it's like, oh, by the way, that distress call? Yeah, now the Typhonians are on their way to destroy the planet.
It's like a tacked-on conflict that we didn't know until the very end. And I also enjoy how the huntsman, in his dashing hat, I might add, if anyone wants to buy me that hat from a Doctor Who auction sale, please, I will love that hat. I would wear it.
There you go, Riley. There's your cosplay for Gallifrey 1.
There we go. Excellent. Yes. And I love how the huntsman just says, oh, she's dead. Great. All right. Awesome. Like, they just move right along. I know she was a terrible leader, but just barely any ripples at all. Just, we move forward.
Not only do we have a couple things, there's more tacked on than just the Typhonians coming in to destroy everything. We then have to have Adastra's second in command go out to the bandits to then also cause problems. Like, what?
These people are bickering over metal, and they have no fucking clue that their entire planet is about to get nuked with a fucking neutron star. They are so stupid and unaware. Everyone in this story, except for Organon and except for the Huntsman, is fucking worthless, and I wish they'd just fucking destroyed the planet in the end.
Maybe the Doctor should have just done that. He should have just left. Just leave them.
You all are idiots. Peace out.
Yeah. Speaking of Adrasta's second in command going to the bumbling bandits' hideout, the chief bumbling bandit, whatever his name was,
Torvin,
when he gets killed, I died laughing with his death line. Is that really tempered steel? Really? Really? That man, no one has been more obsessed about anything than these people with metal. It is to a level of absurdity. Is that really tempered steel? Are you shitting me? That is what you're going to do for a death line? Good Lord. Anthony, this has got to be taking the piss. They are taking the piss.
They must be.
They have to with that. My God.
Because low budgets, badly realized monsters, yeah, okay. All right, that's fine. But if you've got to deal with that, then at least cajole a good performance out of your actors.
Maybe they realized, as you said, like with the problem with the creature and running into just the deadline, everyone just kind of thought like, well, this is going to be shit. Mm-hmm. And so they just mailed it in. Oh boy.
Yeah.
So let's go to space for more goofiness.
At this point, this is just so tacked on to the end. I don't care. The Doctor saves the day with Erato. They get a trading agreement. Organon claims it was written on the stars. That's the end of our story. I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's dumb. You two go ahead if you want to.
I think that's it. Other than just the spacing looks like crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, at one point, I believe it is the neutron star as it's getting closer, when it's back deep in the space field and it's that glowing orb, I swear to God, you can see a shadow on the handle that's holding it up as it's getting closer. Oh, dear.
It's so bad. It's just so bad. All right, camp count points.
Oh, yeah.
It's so bad that, is it camp at this point?
I think the giant green penis probably wins a few.
That gets a couple.
I do think the avert Fagin impression probably gets a couple.
Oregano.
Yeah.
5, 6.
Lady Adrasta's acting.
6, 7.
I'll go 6 or I'll go 7.
Oh,
I'll go 7. I'll go 7.
We're going with. I'm going to take Riley going high on this. All right. I didn't pick up any. I'll explain laters. We had 0 quarries. We had 0 jelly babies. All right. Let's go ahead and rate this shit show. Julie, you get to go first this time.
Shit. Which is what this episode is.
Yes.
Hey.
It is very surprising to come across something this bad at this point in the game. Everyone that I know is like, oh man, Tom Baker, it's the best Doctor Who out there. And I get delivered this shit. Okay. I also don't know that in the span of an hour, actually less than, I don't think that I've said the phrase ball sack this often in my entire life. This is bad. The direction is bad. The story is bad. The acting is bad. There's really not a lot of redeeming qualities about this one. There's a few good, decent characters, I suppose. There's a few good quips here and there. But guys, no. I will not be rewatching this unless someone tries to convince me, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. I'm going to go real hard on this one. I'm giving this 1.5.
Whoa.
Hairy rolling balls out of 10. That's a shit show.
All right, Riley, what have you got?
Oh, this is the first serial that I've seen that the writing, the script itself, I think would have been better as a Big Finish story than an actual Doctor Who visual, which is kind of amazing. I've heard better scripts on Big Finish than I have with this. It is tough to find redeeming qualities. I enjoy goofiness for its sake sometimes if I'm in the right mood, so it has that going for it. If I want to see something incredibly goofy, that's there for me. It's tough to be positive here. I did enjoy the use of lighting. I'll hit on that again. Boy, they really nailed that lighting in this, at least in those first 2 episodes. Wow. But I can't really hang the whole serial on that, can I? So I'm just going to get this over with. I'm going to give this 2.5 demented space tramps out of 10.
Wow. Okay. Well, that brings it to me, and I realize I've been pretty hard on this, so I'm actually going to try and come up with the things that I think are good. So it gets 0.5 point for The Jungle. Good show. Organon gets 0.5 point.
Yeah.
Cool. We're up to 1. There are a couple of lines I enjoyed. I'll be generous. That's another 0.5 point. And sorry, I did enjoy the teach yourself Tibetan gag. That's another 0.5.
A 0.5 point for that?
I'm being generous here. I'm trying to be nice.
Okay.
I think all that gets is 2 beardy con men out of 10 from me. I think that's as generous as I can be. So that gives us an average for this story of 2. And I would like to say the last time we had something this low...
Is it the Space Pirates?
Was the Space Pirates, which had a story average of 1.5.
Wow.
And actually, I will say that is the only story we have had that was worse than this.
Wow.
So, yeah, this was actively bad.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Good job, guys. And by good job, guys, I'm not referring to the 2 of you. I'm referring to the production team on this one. Holy shit.
It didn't help that it followed up City of Death. Talk about a plunge.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next time with Nightmare of Eden. And I'm quite excited about that one. I'm not going to say why, because I don't want to influence any opinions of it. It's either good or it's bad, but for one reason or another, I'm excited. But until then, as always, dear listener, thank you so very much for listening in to us. And of course, until next time, have a good one. You have been listening to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension with Riley Schreck, Julie Philippek, and myself, Anthony Williams. This episode, Hairy Rolling Balls, was recorded on Wednesday the 14th of August, 2024. If this is your first time listening into the show, all of our previous episodes are available wherever you like to get your podcasts. You can interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Watchers4D, and you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe and consider leaving us a review or rating on your favorite podcasting app. All of those things really do help the show. And always remember, if you're going to quit Doctor Who, follow Christopher Barry's lead, because you may as well go ahead and do it by making an absolute shit show of a story.